The night was dark on the planet called New Hanseong. 2 moons hung in the sky, casting silver light across the small village of Sabyol. This was a human colony far from Earth, where 200 people lived and worked. They grew food in the rich soil and built homes among the strange alien trees. The forest nearby glowed softly with blue and purple lights from plants that humans had never seen before coming to this world. But something was wrong. For 3 weeks, the animals kept disappearing. First, it was chickens, then goats, then a whole cow vanished in one night. The farmers found huge claw marks on the wooden fences. Deep scratches ran down tree trunks higher than any man could reach. Whatever was taking the animals was big, strong, and very dangerous. The village security chief was a man named Teho. He was 40 years old with gray hair at his temples and scars on his hands from old battles. He had fought in wars before coming to this peaceful colony. Now he carried his gun again. He gathered the hunters and showed them the tracks in the mud. The footprints were massive, with 6 claw marks in each one. "This is a Vreskath," said Nari, the village scientist. She was a woman in her 30s who studied the animals and plants of New Hanseong. They are the most dangerous hunters on this planet. 4 meters tall, scales like black glass, 6 eyes that can see in total darkness. The villagers were afraid. Parents kept their children inside after dark. Men with guns walked around the village edges at night, looking for glowing eyes in the forest. They set up bright lights and alarms. But the creature was smart. It watched and waited. In a small cottage at the village edge lived a boy named Doyen. He was 7 years old with messy black hair and eyes full of curiosity. He lived with his grandmother Hana. His parents had died when he was very young in an accident with the big machines that changed the planet's air to make it breathable for humans. Hana raised him alone, teaching him to be kind and brave. Hana was 60 years old with long silver hair that she tied back while she worked. She knew all about plants and made medicine from herbs. Everyone in the village came to her when they were sick. She was gentle and wise, but she worried about her grandson. Doyen was too curious, too fearless. He always wanted to explore the forest, even now when danger lurked in the shadows. "Stay inside when it gets dark," Hana told Doyen every evening. "The creature is hunting. It could hurt you." Doyen nodded, but his mind wandered. He wondered what the creature looked like. Was it really as scary as everyone said? He had read books about Earth animals. Wolves were dangerous, but people made them into dogs. Lions were fierce, but some people lived near them in peace. Maybe this creature was just hungry and scared, not evil. One evening, just before the sun set, Doyen saw something interesting. Small glowing berries grew on bushes at the forest edge, just 50 steps from his house. They were safe to eat and tasted sweet. Hana used them in her cooking. The boy thought he would pick some as a surprise for dinner. He slipped out the back door while Hana was busy in her workroom grinding herbs. The air was cool and smelled like flowers. The twin moons were rising, painting everything in soft silver light. Doyen walked to the bushes and started picking berries, dropping them into his pockets. He picked and picked, moving from bush to bush. He did not notice how far he had wandered. The forest was so beautiful, with its glowing plants and strange singing insects. Before he knew it, the village was a distant collection of lights behind him, and he stood alone among the trees. That was when he heard it. A low sound, deep like thunder but steady like breathing. Something big moved in the shadows ahead. "Doyen froze!" His heart beat fast. He wanted to run, but his legs would not move. Then it stepped into the moonlight. The creature was enormous. It walked on 4 powerful legs, each ending in curved claws as long as kitchen knives. Its body was covered in scales that looked like black metal, reflecting the moon's light. The head was massive with a wide mouth full of sharp teeth. But what caught Doyen's attention were the eyes. 6 of them arranged in 2 rows, glowing soft amber like firelight. The Vreskath stared at the small human child. Its nostrils flared, breathing in his scent. The creature's muscles tensed. This was prey. Small, weak, easy to catch. 1 bite and it would be over. But Doyen did not scream. He did not run. He simply stood there and looked up at the creature with wide eyes. Then slowly his face changed. His mouth curved into a small smile. "You're beautiful," Doyen whispered. The Vreskath's head tilted to one side. This was wrong. Prey always ran, always screamed. They fought or they fled. But this tiny creature just stood there, smiling, speaking in soft sounds. The predator's 6 eyes blinked in confusion. From far away, Hana's voice called out, "Doyen, Doyen, where are you?" There was fear in her voice. The sound broke the strange moment. The Vreskath's ears twitched. It took one step backward, then another. Without making a sound, it melted back into the shadows like smoke. 1 second it was there, huge and powerful. The next second it was gone, as if it had never existed. Doyun stood alone in the moonlight, his pockets full of berries, his heart still racing. He heard his grandmother calling again, closer now. He ran toward her voice. Hana found him at the forest edge and grabbed him tight. "Never do that again," she said, her voice shaking. "You could have been killed." "I saw it," Grandma, Doyun said quietly. "I saw the creature everyone is afraid of." Hana's face went pale. "What happened? Are you hurt?" "No," Doyun said, looking back at the dark forest. "It just looked at me. It was curious, not mean. I think it's lonely." Hana pulled him toward home, not believing him. She thought fear had confused him, or maybe the moonlight had played tricks on his eyes. But she looked at his face and saw something there. No fear, no lies, just honest wonder. That night, Doyun lay in his bed and thought about the creature. Its 6 amber eyes, its powerful body, the way it tilted its head when he smiled. Everyone said it was a monster, but Doyun did not think so. It was just an animal, trying to survive in a world that humans had moved into. In the village meeting hall, Taiho was making plans with the hunters. "We hunt it tomorrow," he said, "before it kills someone's child." Nari argued against it. "These creatures are almost extinct. They are intelligent. We should try to relocate it, not kill it." But the other villagers were too afraid. They voted to hunt the Vreskath. In 3 days, when everything was ready, they would go into the forest with their biggest guns and end the threat forever. Far away in the forest, the creature called Vreskath lay in its den. It was hungry, so very hungry. Its hunting grounds had been destroyed by earthquakes months ago, and it had wandered for weeks looking for food. When it found this place with its 2-legged creatures and their fat animals, it thought it had found salvation. But now something strange had happened. The small 2-legged one had not run, had not feared, had smiled. The Vreskath's primitive mind could not understand it. In all its years as a hunter, nothing had ever reacted that way. The creature closed its 6 eyes and slept, dreaming of things it could not name. Curiosity, confusion, and something else, something it had not felt since its pack died in the earthquakes, a tiny spark of hope. The next morning, the village was full of activity. Taiho and his team checked their weapons and planned their hunt. They spread out maps on a big table and marked where the creature had been seen. They would go out in 3 days with enough firepower to bring down something twice the size of the Vreskath. Doyun sat at breakfast with his grandmother and listened to the adults talking in the street outside. They spoke about the hunt, about safety, about protecting their families, but nobody talked about what the creature might want or need. Nobody wondered if it was scared or hungry. "They're going to kill it," Doyun said quietly. Hana looked at her grandson with sad eyes. "They think it's the only way to keep everyone safe." "But it didn't hurt me," Doyun said. "It could have, but it didn't. That means something, doesn't it?" Hana did not know what to say. She touched his cheek gently. "You have a kind heart, little one, but sometimes the world is more complicated than kindness." Doyun thought about this all day. He remembered his grandmother's lessons about treating others with respect. She always said that fear made people do cruel things, but bravery and kindness could change everything. If the creature was just hungry and lost, maybe it needed help, not bullets. That afternoon, Hana was teaching Doyun how to bake. She was showing him her special recipe for butter cookies. They were simple but delicious, made with real butter that cost a lot of money because it came from Earth on the supply ships. Flour, sugar, butter, and vanilla. Mix them together, shape them into rounds, and bake until golden. "My grandmother taught me this recipe," Hana said as she helped Doyun roll the dough. "And her grandmother taught her. When you share food with someone, you share friendship." Doyun's eyes lit up. Share food. Share friendship. That was it. That was how he could help the creature. If it was hungry, he could bring it food. If it was lonely, he could be its friend. The adults were too scared to try, but he was not. That evening, while Hana took her afternoon nap, Doyun quietly went to the kitchen. He mixed butter and sugar until fluffy. He added flour and vanilla. He rolled the dough and cut it into circles. He baked them carefully, watching through the oven window until they turned perfect golden brown. When they cooled, he wrapped 6 cookies in a clean cloth and put them in his jacket pocket. He left a note for his grandmother that said he was going to help a friend and would be back soon. Then he slipped out the back door. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. The guards were all on the far side of the village, watching the main forest paths. Nobody saw one small boy walk to the forest edge and sit down on a fallen log. Doyen waited. The air grew cool. The twin moons started to rise. The glowing plants in the forest began their nightly light show, blues and purples and soft greens. He was not afraid. He believed with all his heart that the creature would not hurt him. He did not have to wait long. The shadows between the trees moved. The Vreskath emerged like water flowing, silent despite its massive size. Its 6 amber eyes found the boy immediately. It stopped 10 paces away, low to the ground, watching. Wary, Doyen smiled. "Hello," he said softly. "I brought you something." He unwrapped the cloth and held up a cookie. The creature's head tilted just like it had the night before. Its nostrils flared, breathing in the sweet smell of butter and sugar and vanilla. Doyen broke off a small piece and put it in his own mouth. "See? It's good. It's safe." He held out another piece on his palm. The Vreskath moved closer. 1 step, 2 steps, 3. It lowered its huge head until its face was level with the boy's hand. Up close, Doyen could see that its scales were not just black but had tiny rainbows of color in them, like oil on water. Its breath was hot and smelled like the forest. A long tongue, surprisingly pink and delicate, reached out and took the cookie piece from Doyen's palm. The creature drew back and chewed slowly. Its 6 eyes widened, then it made a sound. Not a growl. Something else. A deep rumbling that Doyen felt in his chest more than heard with his ears. It sounded almost like a cat purring, but bigger and deeper. Doyen giggled. Pure, happy, childish laughter bubbled out of him. "You like it. Here, have more." He fed the creature piece by piece. The Vreskath ate carefully, as if afraid its sharp teeth or claws might accidentally hurt the small human. Between bites, Doyen talked to it. "My grandma taught me to make these. They're her favorite. She says food is how you make friends." "Are we friends now?" The creature made that rumbling sound again. Doyen decided it meant yes. "You need a name," Doyen said, thinking hard. "How about Shadowfang? Because you hide in shadows and you have big teeth." The Vreskath blinked its 6 eyes slowly. If it objected to the name, it did not show it. For the next hour, boy and beast sat together in the moonlight. Doyen told Shadowfang about the village, about his grandmother, about the books he read describing Earth with its single moon and its familiar animals. He talked about missing his parents even though he barely remembered them. Shadowfang listened. Its 6 eyes never left the boy's face. Sometimes it made soft sounds in response. Once it gently nudged Doyen with its snout, and the boy laughed and hugged its massive head. When the cookies were gone, Doyen stood up. "I have to go home now, but I'll come back tomorrow with more cookies. I promise." Shadowfang made a low sound, almost sad. Then it did something that made Doyen's heart melt. The creature very carefully, very gently touched its nose to the boy's forehead, just for a second. Then it pulled back and faded into the shadows. Doyen walked back toward the village, his heart full of joy. He had made a friend. A real, true friend who was different from him but still cared. But as he reached the village edge, bright lights suddenly blazed on. Teho and 3 other guards surrounded him, guns raised and ready. "Doyen, get behind me now," Teho shouted. They had seen him walking alone from the forest. They thought he had been in danger. The guards swept the area with their lights and guns, looking for any sign of the Vreskath. "I'm okay," Doyen said. "I was just—" "You were in the forest? After dark? Are you crazy?" Teho grabbed his shoulders and checked him for injuries. "Did you see the creature?" Doyen nodded. "Yes, I saw Shadowfang. We shared cookies. It's nice. It won't hurt anyone." The guards stared at him like he was speaking a foreign language. One of them laughed nervously. "The kid's in shock. He's imagining things." But Teho looked at Doyen's face and saw no fear there. No shock, just calm certainty. And there were cookie crumbs on the boy's jacket. They brought Doyen home. Hana was frantic with worry. She hugged him tight and cried. "Never ever do that again." That night after Teho left, Hana sat with Doyen and made him tell her everything. He described meeting Shadowfang, feeding it cookies, feeling its breath and seeing the colors in its scales. He told her about the gentle way it had touched his forehead. Hana listened to every word. When he finished, she was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "I believe you." Doyen looked up, surprised. I believe you found something in that creature that others missed, Hana said. But the adults are afraid and fear makes people dangerous. You must be very careful. Doyen promised to be careful. But in his heart he knew he would visit Shadowfang again. His friend was out there alone and hungry, and Doyen had more cookies to bake. The next morning the village council met in the main hall. 20 adults sat around a long table, their faces serious. Tejo stood at the front with his maps and plans. We hunt tomorrow at dawn, he said. We have the weapons. We have the traps. This creature has terrorized us long enough. Nari stood up quickly. Wait, please. The Vreskath is an endangered species. There might be only a few dozen left on this entire planet. If we kill this one, we could be destroying something precious. It's killing our livestock, someone said. Because it's starving, Nari argued. My research shows that the geological shifts 3 months ago destroyed the hunting grounds in the mountain regions. This creature didn't choose to come here. It was forced here by circumstances. We can relocate it instead of killing it. The council members argued back and forth. Some agreed with Nari. Most sided with Tejo. In the end, they voted. The hunt would proceed. Nari sat down, frustrated and sad. Doyen heard about the vote from other children. He felt a tight knot in his stomach. Tomorrow they would hunt Shadowfang. Tomorrow his friend might die. He could not let that happen. That evening he baked more cookies. This time Hana helped him even though she looked worried. When they finished, Doyen packed the cookies in his backpack along with some dried meat from their storage room. What are you planning? Hana asked quietly. I have to warn Shadowfang, Doyen said. If I can make it understand the danger, maybe it will leave. Hana touched his face. You have your grandfather's brave heart, but be careful. Promise me. I promise, Doyen said. He waited until the guards changed shifts, then slipped out through his bedroom window. The night was clear and cold. He ran to the forest edge and called softly. Shadowfang, Shadowfang, please come. The creature appeared within seconds as if it had been waiting. When it saw Doyen's distressed face, it made a questioning sound. The rumble was different this time, concerned. Doyen tried to explain. He used his hands to show guns, to show danger, to show Shadowfang needing to run away. He did not know if the creature understood his words, but he poured all his feeling into them. Fear, worry, love for his friend. Something incredible happened then. Shadowfang lowered its massive head and pressed its forehead against Doyen's. The boy felt a strange vibration, too low to really hear, but strong enough to feel in his bones. And with that vibration came feelings. Not words, but emotions and images. Hunger. Terrible, gnawing hunger. Loneliness. The memory of others like Shadowfang. A family, all lost when the ground shook and the mountains fell. Confusion about why these two-legged creatures feared it when it only wanted to survive. Tears ran down Doyen's cheeks. I understand, he whispered. You're not a monster. You're just sad and hungry and alone. A sound made them both look up. Someone was coming through the trees. Doyen worried it was the guards, but then Nari stepped into the moonlight. She held a small device that beeped softly. I tracked your flashlight signal, she said quietly. Then she saw Shadowfang and stopped breathing. The scientist in her took over. She stared at the creature with wide eyes, watching how it positioned itself between Doyen and her, protective but not aggressive. It's okay, Doyen said. Shadowfang, this is Nari, she's nice. She wants to help you. Nari moved very slowly. She held out her empty hands. I'm not going to hurt you, she said in a soft voice. I want to understand you. Shadowfang's 6 eyes studied her for a long moment. Then, perhaps because Doyen trusted her, the creature relaxed slightly. It made that deep rumbling sound. Nari gasped. That's subsonic communication. I theorized Vreskaths could do that, but I've never witnessed it. They're empathic communicators, Doyen. It's been sharing feelings with you, I know, Doyen said. It showed me why it came here. Its home was destroyed. It's all alone now. Nari sat down carefully, keeping her movements slow and gentle. She asked Doyen to describe everything Shadowfang had shown him. As the boy talked, her scientific mind pieced together the truth. The earthquakes had not just changed the land for human benefit. They had destroyed the ecosystem that sustained creatures like Shadowfang. We did this, Nari said quietly. Not intentionally, but we benefited from the same disaster that destroyed its world. And now we want to kill it for trying to survive. She looked at Shadowfang with new eyes. This was not a mindless predator. This was an intelligent being capable of complex emotions and communication. Everything she had theorized in her research was true and more. "We have to stop the hunt," Doyen said. "Yes," Nari agreed. "But we need proof. We need something that will make the council listen." She took out her recording device and began documenting everything. She recorded Shadowfang's vocalizations. She noted its body language and how it interacted with Doyen. She took measurements and made observations. For hours she worked while boy and creature sat together peacefully. When the first light of dawn began to touch the sky, Nari knew they had to hurry. "Doyen, we need to get back. I have to present this to the council before they start the hunt." Doyen hugged Shadowfang's massive head. "Stay hidden today, okay? Don't come out no matter what. I'll fix this. I promise." Shadowfang touched its nose to his forehead one more time. Then it melted into the forest shadows. Nari and Doyen ran back to the village. The hunters were already gathering their gear. Tejo was loading his biggest gun. They had 2 hours before the hunt began. Nari burst into the meeting hall where the council was having breakfast. "Wait, you have to wait. I have new evidence." The council members looked annoyed, but they let her speak. She presented her recordings and observations. She explained about the subsonic communication and the empathic bonds. She showed them data proving the Vreskath was intelligent, not just a beast. "It didn't choose to come here," she said passionately. "We took its home when we changed this world for ourselves. It's starving and alone. It needs help, not bullets." Tejo crossed his arms. "This doesn't change the fact that it's dangerous. It's killed our animals. What's to stop it from killing a person next?" Doyen stepped forward then, his small voice clear and strong. "I've been alone with it 3 times. It could have eaten me. But it didn't, it was gentle. It listened to me. It's my friend." The adult stared at the 7-year-old boy. Hannah stood from her chair. "My grandson speaks the truth." "He has no reason to lie. If he says the creature is not evil, I believe him." The room erupted in argument. Some people said Doyen was just a child who did not understand danger. Others said that maybe the boy saw something the adults had missed. They debated for hours while Taiho's hunters waited outside, growing impatient. Finally, the council leader held up her hand for silence. "We will compromise. Nari, you have 1 week to prove your theory. We will set up a feeding station far from the village. If the creature accepts food peacefully and shows no aggression, we will relocate it instead of killing it. But if there is any sign of danger, we hunt immediately." Nari and Doyen looked at each other with relief. 1 week. They had 1 week to save Shadowfang. Tejo was not happy with the decision, but he agreed to the compromise. His team would stay armed and ready, watching from a distance. One mistake and the creature would die. The stakes could not be higher. The feeding station was built 2 kilometers from the village at the edge of the forest. It was a simple platform with a roof to keep rain off the food. Nari and several volunteers stocked it with surplus livestock meat and protein blocks made in the village lab. Taiho insisted on security measures. 4 guards with guns positioned themselves 50 meters away, hidden behind barriers but ready to shoot if needed. Cameras on poles recorded everything. The entire village was watching this experiment, some with hope, others with fear. Doyen wanted to be there when Shadowfang came. Nari agreed, though many adults protested. "The creature trusts him," she explained. Without Doyen, it might not approach at all. On the first morning, they waited. Doyen sat at the edge of the platform with a bag of fresh cookies. The guards watched through their scopes. The cameras recorded. The forest was quiet except for bird sounds and rustling leaves. Then Shadowfang emerged from between the trees. The creature moved cautiously, its 6 amber eyes scanning everything. It saw the humans with guns. It smelled the food. But it stayed at the forest edge, uncertain. "Shadowfang." "It's okay," Doyen called out. He held up a cookie. "I brought your favorite." The sound of the boy's voice seemed to flip a switch in the creature. Its posture relaxed. It walked forward slowly, keeping its eyes on the armed humans but moving toward Doyen. When it reached the platform, it lowered its head and took the cookie gently from Doyen's hand. Then Shadowfang noticed the meat and protein blocks. Its nostrils flared. Hunger blazed in its 6 eyes. But it looked at Doyen first, as if asking permission. "Yes, that's for you," Doyen said. "Eat as much as you want." Shadowfang ate. It was not elegant or slow. The creature was starving, and it showed. It devoured the food with desperate speed. The guards tightened their grips on their weapons, but Shadowfang never showed aggression. It just ate and ate until the platform was empty. When it finished, Shadowfang made that deep rumbling sound. It touched its nose to Doyen's head, then turned and walked back into the forest. The whole encounter had taken 15 minutes. Back in the village, people watched the video footage over and over. They saw how gentle the creature was with Doyen. They saw how it had looked to the boy for permission before eating. Some people started to think maybe Nari and Doyen were right. Maybe this creature was not a mindless monster. The next morning, they brought more food. Shadowfang appeared at almost the exact same time. Its internal clock had adjusted to match the feeding schedule. This time, the creature looked healthier. Its scales shined brighter. Its movements were stronger. Day after day, the routine continued. Shadowfang came every morning at 8. It spent time with Doyen. It allowed Nari to observe it from a respectful distance. The creature was learning to trust, and the humans were learning to see it differently. On the 5th day, something remarkable happened. Shadowfang came to the feeding station, but this time it carried something in its mouth. The guards tensed, ready for trouble, but Shadowfang simply placed its burden on the platform and stepped back. It was a dead animal, a 6-legged grazer that lived in the forest. Shadowfang had hunted and brought it as a gift. Nari's eyes went wide. Gift-giving behavior. That's how Vreskath packs bond with each other. It's sharing its kill with you, Doyen. It considers you family. Doyen did not fully understand what that meant, but he understood enough. Shadowfang was saying thank you in the only way it knew how. The boy bowed respectfully. Thank you, Shadowfang. You are very kind. The creature made its happy rumble and settled down near the platform, apparently content to just be close to the humans. That evening, other children asked their parents if they could visit the feeding station. They wanted to see Shadowfang too. Some parents said no, still afraid, but a few braver families said yes. The next morning, 3 more children came with Doyen, walking behind their nervous parents. Shadowfang seemed fascinated by the new young humans. It approached very slowly and sniffed each child carefully. The children giggled nervously. One little girl held out a cookie, copying what she had seen Doyen do. Shadowfang took it gently, making the children squeal with delight. By the 6th day, the village's attitude had shifted dramatically. People started calling Shadowfang by name instead of calling it the creature or the monster. They brought their leftover food to donate to the feeding station. They stood at a safe distance and watched the magnificent being that had gone from enemy to strange neighbor. But not everyone was happy about this change. Some people still feared Shadowfang and wanted it gone. They muttered that the village was being foolish, that predators could not be trusted, that this would end badly. That evening, as the sun was setting, those people seemed to be proven right. A flock of razor wings descended on the village. These were flying predators with sharp beaks and wings covered in blade-like feathers. They were smaller than Shadowfang, but more numerous and just as deadly. A dozen of them swept down from the sky, attracted by the smell of cooking food. People screamed and ran for cover. Parents grabbed their children. Tejo and his guards started shooting, but the razor wings were fast and hard to hit. They swooped and dove, their sharp beaks stabbing at anyone too slow to get inside. Doyen had been playing near the edge of the village when the attack started. He ran toward home, but a razor wing spotted him. The creature dropped from the sky like a missile, its beak aimed at the small running boy. Doyen tripped and fell. He looked up and saw the razor wing diving toward him. He knew he was about to die. He closed his eyes. Then something massive and black slammed into the razor wing from the side. Shadowfang had appeared from nowhere, moving faster than anything that size should be able to move. The Vreskath caught the razor wing in its jaws and crushed it instantly. Then it spun toward another razor wing and slashed with its claws, dropping it from the air. The other razor wings turned to face this new threat. They attacked Shadowfang together, diving and stabbing. But Shadowfang was a born hunter, an apex predator in its prime. It moved like liquid shadow, dodging and striking with deadly precision. In less than a minute, 3 razor wings lay dead on the ground and the rest fled into the sky. Silence fell over the village. Everyone stood frozen, weapons raised, staring at Shadowfang. The creature was breathing hard, its scales scratched and bleeding in places from the razor wings' attacks. It stood over Doyen, protective, its 6 eyes scanning for more threats. Doyen scrambled to his feet and threw his arms around Shadowfang's leg. "You saved me. You saved everyone." Shadowfang looked down at the boy and made that gentle rumbling sound. Then it turned to face the armed humans, positioning itself between them and Doyun. Not threatening, protecting. Taiho stared at the creature for a long moment. Then slowly he lowered his gun. "It protected us," he said, sounding amazed. "It didn't have to. It could have hidden or run away. But it came to help." One by one, the other guards lowered their weapons too. The villagers began to emerge from their homes. They looked at Shadowfang with new eyes. This creature had just risked its life to save a human child, had fought off a flock of dangerous predators to protect the village. Hana walked forward slowly, her hands shaking. She stopped in front of Shadowfang and looked up at its 6 amber eyes. "Thank you," she said simply. "Thank you for saving my grandson." Shadowfang lowered its head and gently touched its nose to her forehead, just as it did with Doyun. Hana's eyes filled with tears. The village council would meet again that night. But everyone already knew what the decision would be. Shadowfang was no longer a threat to be eliminated. It was a friend, a guardian, a part of their community. The emergency council meeting lasted only an hour. For the first time in weeks, the vote was unanimous. Shadowfang would be granted full protection status. The creature would be allowed to stay in the area as long as it wished. The feeding station would become permanent, and the village would provide food regularly. Nari worked through the night writing an official report for the colonial administration. She documented everything about Shadowfang, from its intelligence and communication abilities to its protective behavior. She requested that all Vreskats across New Hanseong be classified as an endangered protected species. Within a week, the response came back. The colonial administration approved her request. Vreskats were now legally protected throughout all human territories on the planet. Hunting them would be a serious crime. Nari's research had changed policy for the entire colony network. But more importantly, it had changed hearts and minds in Sabiol village. Shadowfang became part of the community. The creature established a den at the forest edge where everyone could see it. Every morning it came to the feeding station. Every evening it patrolled the village boundaries, keeping other dangerous predators away. Not a single animal went missing after Shadowfang took up residence. The Razorwings never returned. Children begged their parents to visit Shadowfang. Under careful supervision, they were allowed to bring treats and observe the magnificent creature. Shadowfang seemed to understand that young humans were fragile. With them, it was always incredibly gentle. It would lie down so it was not so tall and scary. It would accept cookies and little gifts with patient care. Doyun remained Shadowfang's closest friend. Every day after his lessons, the boy would go to visit. He brought cookies, always cookies. Sometimes he brought books and would read to the creature, even though Shadowfang could not understand the words. The creature would settle down and listen to the sound of the boy's voice, making soft rumbling sounds of contentment. Hana watched her grandson with pride and wonder. The boy had taught the entire village an important lesson about fear and kindness. He had shown that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is offer friendship instead of violence. 3 months after Shadowfang's arrival, something extraordinary happened. The creature disappeared for 3 days. The villagers worried that it had left for good or had been hurt. Doyun went to the den every morning and called, but Shadowfang did not come. On the 4th day, Shadowfang returned, and it was not alone. Following behind was another Vreskath, slightly smaller than Shadowfang with scales that had a subtle purple tint instead of pure black. A mate. Shadowfang had found another of its kind in the wild places of New Hansong. The new Vreskath was nervous around humans at first. It hung back while Shadowfang approached Doyun as usual, but when it saw how gentle Shadowfang was with the boy, how the humans offered food instead of weapons, it slowly began to trust. Within a week, both creatures were comfortable at the feeding station. The village doubled their food offerings and built a larger shelter. The 2 Vreskats made their den together in the forest, and the sounds of their communication rumbles echoed through the trees at night. 5 months later, Doyun arrived at the feeding station to find Shadowfang guarding something carefully. 2 small Vreskats, babies only a meter tall, peeked out from behind their parents' legs. They had tiny scales that would eventually grow as hard as their parents, and their 6 eyes were bright with curiosity. Doyun gasped with delight. "Babies, Shadowfang, you have babies!" Shadowfang made a proud rumbling sound. The parent creature gently nudged one of the cubs forward. The baby Vreskath tumbled out, awkward and adorable. It looked at Doyen with innocent curiosity, sniffing the air. Doyen held out a cookie. The baby creature took tiny steps forward, encouraged by Shadowfang's gentle sounds. When it reached Doyen, it sniffed the cookie, then took it with a delicate nibble. Its eyes widened with delight, and it made a high-pitched version of its parents' rumble. The second cub, braver now that its sibling had gone first, bounded forward and demanded its own cookie. Doyen laughed and laughed, sitting in the grass while two baby predators climbed over him like puppies, looking for more treats. News of the Vreskath family spread throughout the colony network. Scientists from other settlements came to study them. Reporters wanted to interview Doyen, the story of a small boy who befriended an apex predator with nothing but cookies and kindness, became famous across human space. Other colonies began reporting successful, peaceful contact with previously feared native species. Humans were learning that not everything alien had to be fought or feared. Sometimes understanding and compassion worked better than guns. Sabiol Village became known as a model community for coexistence. People came from other settlements to see how humans and Vreskaths lived side by side. The village grew prosperous from the attention, but more importantly, it grew peaceful. Taiho, the former security chief who had wanted to hunt Shadowfang, became one of the creature's biggest defenders. He organized protection patrols to make sure no one from outside the village tried to harm the Vreskath family. He admitted to Nari one evening that he had been wrong. "I spent years fighting," he said. "I thought strength meant being the toughest, the most armed, the most ready for battle. But a 7-year-old boy with cookies was braver than I ever was." He saw a friend where I saw an enemy. Nari smiled. "That's humanity's real gift to the galaxy. We can be fierce warriors when we need to be, but we can also be foolish enough to offer friendship to the most unlikely creatures. And sometimes that foolishness is actually wisdom." 6 months after that first cookie was shared, Doyen sat at the feeding station on a warm evening. The twin moons were rising, painting everything in silver light. Shadowfang lay nearby, watching its cubs play. The two baby Vreskaths wrestled and tumbled, learning the skills they would need as adults. Doyen was 8 years old now. He had grown taller and was learning more advanced lessons from the village teachers. Nari had taken him on as an assistant in her research. The boy spent hours learning about the creatures and plants of New Hansong, dreaming of the day he could be a real scientist. Hana sat on a bench near the feeding station, knitting and watching her grandson. Her heart was full. The boy could have died that first night in the forest. Instead, he had started something beautiful. He had built a bridge between two species that should have been enemies. One of the Vreskath cubs bounded over to Doyen and put its head in his lap, begging for attention. The boy laughed and scratched behind its ears right where it liked. The cub's purring rumble was loud enough to feel through the ground. "You know," Hana called out, "when your parents named you Doyen, they chose well. It means reaching enlightenment through kindness." Doyen looked up and smiled. "I just wanted to share cookies, Grandma." "Yes," Hana said softly, and that simple act changed everything. Shadowfang stood and walked over to where Hana sat. The massive creature settled down beside her bench, close enough that she could reach out and touch its scales if she wanted. It was a gesture of trust and family. The old woman and the apex predator sat together in comfortable silence, watching the boy and the cubs play in the moonlight. Far above, in the Colonial Administration headquarters, officials were rewriting first contact protocols. The Sabiol Village model was being taught in schools throughout human space. When humans encountered new alien species, they were now encouraged to try communication and kindness before resorting to force. The story of the boy and the Vreskath became a legend. It was told on Earth and Mars and 100 colony worlds. People wrote songs about it. Children played games pretending to be Doyen offering cookies to scary monsters. The lesson spread far and wide. Humanity. Fuck yeah. Not because humans were the strongest or the smartest or the most advanced, but because they had this strange, beautiful ability to make friends with anyone, to see potential allies where others saw only threats, to offer kindness when logic suggested fear. Other alien species in the galaxy were cautious and sensible. They built walls and kept strangers at a distance. But humans would walk up to a 4-meter-tall apex predator and offer it a cookie. They would giggle in the face of danger and see friendship in the eyes of something that could kill them easily. It was irrational. It was illogical. It was completely insane by any reasonable standard. It was also what made humanity special in the cosmos. As the evening grew darker and the glowing forest plants lit up in their nightly display, Doyen pulled out his backpack. He had brought a fresh batch of cookies, of course. He always did. He shared them around, one for each Vreskath cub. One for Shadowfang, one for the mate, and one for his grandmother. They sat together, this strange little family of humans and predators, and enjoyed the simple pleasure of sweet cookies under the light of 2 moons. In the distance, the village lights glowed warm and welcoming. The forest sang with alien night sounds, and in one small corner of a vast galaxy, 2 species who should have been enemies had become friends. All because a 7-year-old boy had giggled and offered a cookie. All because humanity, despite everything, still believed in kindness, and in the end, that made all the difference. The end.